My name is Adrian Lee, and this is my story. Grew up in East London, South London, mainly in South London. Growing up for me was hard at times. You know, the best times of my growing up period was in church. A church named Calvary Temple that I went to from the age of about 6 up until the age of 15. For me, growing up in church was pretty good. I enjoyed it, made quite a lot of friends there. You know, the teaching, the worship was great. I'm going to tell you about a time that I had the wrong guidance. I met a guy in church that I first started to go to, and we used to speak about the Bible a lot. You know, he used to tell me about dreams that he had regarding the Word and things like that. So we built up quite a strong relationship. We got to be good friends. Went around to his house for Sunday dinners and after church, and then we'd go back to church. And we built up quite a tight relationship, friend-wise. Little did I know that this guy was one of the biggest gang leaders in South London. And unfortunately, I sort of got involved in that from about the age of about 14. You know, we used to meet up together, go down to certain parts of London where we'd get up to loads of different things, you know, selling narcotic or selling drugs, being involved in buying and selling weapons. And it happened over time. It didn't just all happen all at once. Gradually, things started to intensify in regards to what we'd be involved in. And then he started to introduce me to other things that even now I don't like to remember. Yeah, we were involved in a protection racket. That was one of the main things that we used to do in order to get money. A protection racket, for those who don't know, is where restaurants and other shops would ask, or we would say to them, look, we're going to protect your shop. If you have any problems, come and let us know, and then we'll come and sort out these people, whether it was giving them a beating or doing whatever. We also used to meet up in West End. That's where the main area was, and this near Chinatown actually. And this area had a lot of other gangs that were involved around that area. It was sort of like a turf war environment. So we would basically claim this area and say, look, this is our area. If you step in this area, we're going to come and get you. So there used to be a lot of gang fighting, gang warfare involving a lot of machetes, all types of weapons. You know, people used to get really badly hurt. I thank God never got hurt. You know, for some reason, maybe I was being protective. I'm not sure what it was, but I didn't get hurt. On the other hand, we did hurt other people. You know, there was one incident where we caught another gang member in our territory, and there was about 8 or 9 of us, and we beat him up basically to a point where he was on the floor, and someone picked up a metal bin and threw it on his head, and he started to shake, and that really scared me. Thank God, now I thank God that I didn't get hurt during these battles that we used to have. We used to have them regular, throwing bricks at each other, running in restaurants that the other gang was in, and trying to fight them. And it's like something that you see in the movies, but it was actual real life. People were really getting hurt. You know, people's lives have been changed at times, you know, by certain things that went on. I started to get quite deeply involved in the whole gang warfare. There was loads of things that happened, and on one occasion we got involved in sorting out some protection racket for a restaurant, and this guy decided to basically fight against us and say, look, he doesn't want anything to do with this protection racket. Obviously our group didn't really like that, so then they've beat the man up, they've beat up his sons, you know, he still didn't give in. He still didn't want anything to do with it. So I think the final straw was to blow up his restaurant, which I got involved in with two petrol bombs, which were set up, and this happened in the night time, you know, on a weekday. For some reason, everybody else decided not to join me with this. So me thinking, yeah, I missed the big shot, tried to go in there by myself with two petrol bombs. I ran into the restaurant and threw one petrol bomb one way and another one at the other end of the restaurant. And it's only now I can look back on it and thank God that they didn't blow up, because there was people in the restaurant. Who knows what could have happened. And there were also undercover police officers that were in there because of all the trouble that was happening in that area. So I then got arrested. Went to prison for 18 months before the trial went to court. I was in the Old Bailey because of the seriousness of it. What I was being charged with was attempted murder, attempted arson with intent to endanger life, theft, robbery, and blackmail. So my solicitor said to me, look, he said, you're looking at around about 8 years to 15 years because of the intensity of what had happened, not just on that one occasion, but over a long period of time involving that gang related stuff. This is one of the times where I prayed. I was in Old Bailey, and when he said to me, look, you could be doing up to 15 years, I prayed when I was in the cell, and I asked God, asked God to forgive me for what I'd done to change my life. And it's funny, I made a promise to the Lord. I said, if you get me out of this, I'm going to come back to serve you, because these times obviously I wasn't in church. So I said, get me out of here and I'm going to come back and serve you. The solicitor came up to me and spoke to me and said, look, you've got 3 options, to plead guilty, not guilty, and there was a third option, which my solicitor said, I cannot remember what it was, but they basically said, look, you haven't got a chance to get this one, you've got a 1 in 100 chance to get it. So it's just an option that we're letting you know that is available to you, but we wouldn't advise going for it. So it was after that I prayed, and I went for that 1 in 100 chance, and went into court, and the judge said that I could go home. So, you know, at the time, I didn't realize that that was basically a miracle, what the Lord had done because of my promise to him. And even though I came out the same day, I still didn't come back to church, and still went out, got involved in selling drugs, you know, selling weed, selling cocaine, selling ecstasy tablets in parties and raves, smoking cannabis every day, drinking alcohol like there was no tomorrow. You know, basically was an alcoholic, and it wasn't a rough way. I went to jail again for a short period of time. Some of the things I saw happen even in jail, you know, I wouldn't even like my worst enemy to go through it. You know, I've seen people getting battered and bruised. I've seen inmates putting snooker balls in socks and smacking people over the head. I've seen some of the guards in the jail beating people up off camera, you know, because of things that had happened. There's so much that goes on that, you know, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It made me start to think that I had to change. I had to change. I didn't want to go through that again. And I think after that, you know, I thought to myself, that is it. That's what I thought to myself, even though I thought that things still kept coming up that could have put me back inside. You talk about the fruits of the Spirit. I didn't have patience. I didn't have long suffering. I didn't have gentleness. I had all the opposites. I had anger. I was quick-tempered. You know, anyone said the wrong thing or did anything that I didn't like, then it would end up in, you know, us having a fight or something like that. It's important to have the fruits of the Spirit, because without them, you know, without that, it can destroy your life. It can destroy your life. Growing up in the world, I was bad, but I wasn't a person that would go out there looking for trouble. I wouldn't go out there looking for trouble and be a troublemaker. I wasn't that type of person. In regards to gang warfare and things like that, that was just part and parcel of it. That everyone knew what they were getting involved in. So, I'd just like to make that clear. I wasn't someone that was a troublemaker and would go out there and look for it. But even still, the devil would use things to bring a reaction out of an individual or out of a group of people. So, one thing I would say is for all the young people out there, the enemy doesn't want you to be in church. He doesn't want you to be serving the one God that there is. He doesn't want you to serve him. So he's going to put temptations, he's going to put things in your way that is going to make you do the opposite of what God wants you to do. Things that you're weak to. When Jesus was in the desert, fasting, God tempted him with things that the flesh would want. So just be mindful, and think twice before you react, before you do anything. Think about it, because if you don't and you just react, you're going to get in problems. Always look to the Lord for your guidance and direction. There was consequences in regards to leaving the gang earlier. When I served my sentence and I came out of jail, I was in an area that we used to hang around in, and somebody came up to me and said, "Look, you better watch your back, because people are looking to take you out, basically. People looking to get rid of you." All I did, luckily, was sort of distance myself from the type of crowd that I used to hang around with. Distance myself, and it's like I always felt like I had to watch my back, because I didn't know what was going to happen, if somebody was going to, out of the blue, come and attack me. What I mean? Loads of things could have happened. So in order to leave a gang, sometimes it's not that easy. It's not that easy. There are consequences if you do leave sometimes, and because there's certain things that you know about what used to happen. The gang is scared that you're going to then either tell somebody else. It could be another gang, it could be the police, anything like that. So for that reason, sometimes they will try and take you out. But thank God, he looked out for me, and that didn't happen to me. But every day when I was walking on the road, I was watching my back, because I just didn't know. I was ready in case anything happened, but I just didn't know. So the way how I was, if somebody came to me with a gun or with whatever, I would try my best to take them out before they could do me anything. It's like they said, it's a dog eat dog world. You have to be ready. If you're willing to do things to people, things like that is going to happen. Things like that could happen to you. Like it says, those who live by the sword die by the sword. So I would have been willing to take people out if my life was threatened, or any of my family. I would have took people out. I would have done that and dealt with the consequences after. When I was the first time when I was arrested, I was in the Old Bailey, and like I said before, I did pray, and I said to the Lord, I said, "Look, if you get me out of this place, I will give my life to you." Years down the line, I still didn't give my life to him, and what that prayer that I said was always playing in the back of my mind. And I think that sometimes I would drink and take drugs, weed, cocaine, things like that, to try and sort of numb out, block that out, because I knew that there was a calling in my life. It would always be in the back of my mind. And I remember I met my wife, and I prayed about that also. I said, "Look, Lord, I want to meet a wife that is God-fearing," because I'd had enough of being out in the world, and I wanted to come back to him. I didn't know how, because I was still drinking alcohol, I was still smoking weed and taking other drugs, but I knew that I needed to be back in church. I remember one time I was walking in North London somewhere, and there was a group of people witnessing outside, and a lady came up to me, and she said to me, "Oh, have you been in church before?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "The Lord is calling you back right now." And that, I'm telling you, that convicted my spirit. It convicted my spirit. From that day forward, I was invited to a few churches that me and my wife went to, and then we ended up, thank God, coming to LCM. We came to the church. You know, you could feel God's presence, God's spirit while we were at church, and that's how we ended up being at LCM. Obviously, my aunt and Uncle Peter was there before. My mum and my stepfather used to go to the church as well, so that was even better for us, you know. When I was in when I started coming back to church, we used to come back to church. You know, it used to be great services. You know, but the thing is, when I left on Sunday, I'll go back home, roll up a spliff, end up smoking the spliff, and the only time that we wouldn't do it is while we was at church, or while I was at church. It wasn't easy to stop that, because it is an addiction. But thank the Lord that I did stop over time. I think there was a process. I was talking to another brother in the church, and I was saying to him, look, I want to give up these habits that I've got. And he said, look, when you first come into church, it's like being a baby. A baby doesn't learn to get up and start sprinting like you say in Bolt. It learns to walk, crawl first, then the baby learns to walk, then the baby learns to run. And I think in church is a similar process that some people have to go through, you know. So I think gradually, you know, I was convicted gradually, and I stopped smoking, you know, after a lot of prayer. It wasn't easy. The more I tried to give up smoking, the more people would offer it to me. You know, it's like the more you try and give up something that you shouldn't be doing, the more temptation is there, the bigger the temptation. And I think it's a test to try and get you to give in to that temptation, you know. So the more that you get tempted, for most people, the easier it is to give in. Sometimes it's not easy to have temptations and habits and things like that. It's not easy to give up, you know. I heard about one of my friends. She was a young lady from Brixton. She used to smoke weed and cigarettes, and I remember she said to me, this is when I was still smoking, she said she went to a church service, and she gave her life to the Lord, and when she rolled up the spliff and tried to smoke it, she couldn't. She started coughing and vomiting and things like that, and she said from that day she didn't touch it again. So even when I was trying to give up, that's sort of the vision that I imagined would happen to me. And I kept saying, Lord, you know, I want to give up smoking, but in my heart I didn't. But it's just words. Lord, I want to give up smoking, I want to give up smoking. Help me to do it. And it didn't happen for a long time. It didn't happen for a long, long time. And it's only when I really wanted to do it in my heart that, you know, the Lord helped me to do it. You know, and like it says in the Bible, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So if you depend on the Lord, He can help you do anything you need to do. It's funny now, but I did pray before I met my wife. I said, Lord, provide me with a wife that is God-fearing, and Alethea turned up, and she's God-fearing. So we decided to make that transition back to church, which was brilliant. And from the way that I used to be, I know that my wife was so happy, because now she didn't have to worry about me going out and getting involved in violence, or getting involved in drugs, and, you know, going to the pub and drinking, or going around friends' houses and drinking, and then getting up to mischief and getting into problems. And my wife didn't have to worry about that, because we were headed in the right direction. For my family, it was a relief. For me, it was also a relief, because I knew that I was headed in the right direction. And it wasn't easy. The more closer I would get to God, the more the enemy would throw things in my direction to try and get me to turn away from where I should be. But I thank God that, you know, I've stuck on the right path. I just want God to just use me and my family to do His will. And I know that He is going to use us to do His will. It sometimes sickens me how I used to be. But the only thing that gives me great joy is how the Lord has changed me. from a totally different person. I thank him for that. All I'm saying to you is, please don't let this fall on ears that are just going to go in one ear and out the other. Don't go through what I've been through. It's not even luck. I thank God that I've been able to give this testimony. I could have been dead. I could have been in jail for life. You know, a lot of things could have happened, and it's only by God's grace, you know, and His calling on my life that I'm being able to give you this testimony. Stay in church, come into church if you can, because one thing that happened to me, I used to keep a lot of things to myself. It used to build up, then it used to explode, which is not good. So make sure if you get the chance, speak to someone about things you're going through. If you need to speak to someone, speak to the youth department. There'll always be someone you can speak to. And I hope this helps in Jesus' name. My name's Adrian Lee, and that was my story.
This is a poem that I have written entitled, Are You Ready for the Promise? A promise is a declaration that a particular thing will materialize, an assurance that there will be a transition in a specific situation, possibly something which has never happened before. There are many promises in His Word. Many of us have spent time on our knees declaring for these promises to transpire. But for all these promises to occur, there is one thing that He requires. We must first be standing in the promise. The promise is His return, so I ask you, what is your position? If a promise is made and I truly believe in the words of the promise maker, I will prepare for the manifestation of that promise. Are you preparing for the promise? Many of us have heard the words of the true promise keeper and decided to just take on the parts which we feel we can get on board with. God be our protector, our provider, our healer, our comforter, expecting to say His name and from our struggles be free. Yes, He is able to do exceedingly and abundantly, but His priority is to set the captives free. What use is Him answering all our earthly concerns if at the end of the day we are still not ready for His return? So I ask you again, what is your position? Are you standing in the promise, preparing for His return, thus placing you in a position to receive all His promises, or are you standing on the sideline? No, we do not know the day nor the time, but we do know that one day the trumpet will sound, and those who are ready will be homebound. Do you know your position? Where will you be going when the trumpets sound? Are you ready for His return? Yes, all His promises are guaranteed, but the preparation for the promise of His return is the key. So I ask you one more time, what is your position? Amen.